What was that? A dead baby possum. Oh, that's so sad.
All right, so what is tapering?
Tapering off means tapering it down. Some days when you're training, your legs feel so tired. Different people are going to need to taper for different periods of time, and different races require different tapering. So, because you don't want to overdo it. Remember, you're tapering, you're trying to taper back or taper off, taper weak. Got a marathon in 2 days, so today's taper run is just a nice easy 10, 12 Ks, whatever we get done. Keeping it nice and easy all week. Don't want to do anything to aggravate anything, so that's what tapering run's about. So while we're out there today, we're just gonna, Isaac on the camera here, he's actually gonna ask me some questions about tapering, so I can hopefully give you some information on how that works. Let's go. Yep.
All right, so what is tapering?
Tapering. Tapering is all about reducing or tapering off all the workouts you've been doing. So let's say you've got a half marathon race and you want to put a good effort in, you're going to go for a PB, and you've been doing all the right training leading up, everything you've needed to do, all the necessary workout sessions, the hard workouts, the easy runs, the long runs, you've been putting it all together, right? Tapering off means tapering it down. So tapering off the end. So tapering off is just reducing the amount of work that you've done and the type of work that you've done in your running in order to freshen up and just to get all ready, get your muscles to liven up and freshen up, because you don't want to go to a race under heavy load, because then you're going to be tired, your workout or your run will be reduced. So when you're tapering off, it's just to reduce the amount and freshen up.
So why should you taper?
Well, you want to make sure you taper, because if you go and do, let's say you've got a 10K hard run, you're going to do a race, and you've done 7 weeks of hard training because you want to get this PB and getting everything done right. Now imagine rocking up to the 10K with the same training load you've been doing. I'm telling you now, morning, your legs are going to be tired. You're going to feel like you do when you're normally training every week, week in and week out. And that's not fun. Some days when you're training, your legs feel so tired, your body's fatigued, your oxygen levels are low in your blood because of heavy training work that you've done the day before. And then what? You roll up to a race and you want to go. Now, some people can do that for sure. Elite athletes, and they're on a different level. But for the average person, the reason why you want to taper is just to freshen everything up, give your body time to relax, your muscles to reset. Then when you get to the start line, you're ready to go. Now, that comes with a bit of caution. Some people, when they taper, you get so fresh. You get to the race, it's so funny. They take off, they're like, oh, and they take off real fast. Because you're so fresh from tapering, you forget how fast you're running, and that's very critical when you do a 10K, half marathon or a marathon or anything like that, and you've tapered, you've got to watch the first K or 2 of your race, because that's where people make too many mistakes. They go out too fast because their body's so fresh and they can't believe how good they feel.
All right, so how long should you taper for?
Yeah, so different people are going to need to taper for different periods of time, and different races require different tapering. So just a quick example. What was that? A dead baby possum. Oh, that's so sad. Yeah, so tapering, different tapering times for different races, different events, or what you're setting. But if you are trying to set a PB, let's say in a park run, you taper for that. People are thinking, what? Why would you taper for park run? It's 5K. Well, for some of you, 5K PB, a park run is a big deal. And how I would taper for that is I'd have 2 or 3 rest days in that week leading up to my PB attempt at parkrun, and I'd make sure the day before, so the Friday, is a rest day. stretching, getting ready, making sure that when I get to the start line at parkrun, I'm ready to go. But if you're doing a half marathon or a marathon, you really want to have your taper time for about 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks, some people even 3 weeks. But for on average, 2 weeks for a larger race like a half marathon or marathon, and just taking your time getting it done, making sure you're getting plenty of rest, as well as reducing the volume.
So what do you do during tapering?
Well, what I do during tapering and what I encourage my athletes to do can be two different things. But what I'll do, I'll ask that question and what I encourage other people to do, because you got to remember, people are at different levels of their running journey. So as a coach, I'm always trying to get people to taper according to where they're at, what their race is, the distance and the volume they've been doing. But what you do in tapering is, let's say you're doing a 2-week taper. It's the same whether it's a 1-week taper, 2-week taper, 3-week taper. Let's say it's a 2-week taper. Right before you start tapering, you look at your peak volume or your average or your peak volume. I like to do peak volume. So what was the most that you were doing per week leading up to your taper? And then in the first week of taper, halve that volume, halve that week. So if you were doing 100 Ks a week on your first week of taper, you'll do 50 Ks that week. Then into the second week of taper, or your final week, you halve that volume again. So you'll go 100 Ks, first week of taper you do 50 Ks, second week of taper will be down to 25 Ks leading into the race. Now in that reduced volume, you want to spread out a good amount of rest days. So you don't want to do 2 rest days in a row in the first week of tapering. What I do is I go run, rest, run, rest, run. And then in the week before, the week of the race, I'll go run, rest, rest, run, rest. So, because I'm only looking to do 25 Ks, and for me, that can be just 2 runs. And all your running needs to be short, sharp. If you're going to keep doing speed work, sometimes in tapering I will ask people to keep doing speed work, but it's short. So let's say if you do a track session every Tuesday, in your taper week, the first week of taper, you can still do that track session, but there's 2 ways that you have to do it. You either do it at 75% effort, or you do the first half of the track session hard, and then the second half really easy. Because you don't want to overdo it. Remember, you're tapering, you're trying to taper back or taper off the amount of load and work you're doing. But you don't want to put your body into a rest either, where it's too lethargic and rested. So you just got to find that fine balance where you're doing just enough to get that tapering effect and that nice reset, but still keeping the blood flowing and the muscles moving.
All right, so how many rest days do you have in tapering?
I think I just answered this one, but let's get a little more specific here. So in the first week, if you're doing 2-week taper, which on average is what most people are going to do, 2-week taper. In the first week, I'd have probably 2 taper days out of 7, maybe a third one, all depending on how sore my muscles are from the training load, but minimum 2. Into the second week of taper before the race, out of 7 days, I'll probably rest about 4 of those days. So let's say my race was on a Sunday, I would go Monday run, Tuesday rest, Wednesday run, Thursday rest, Friday rest, Friday run, Saturday rest. So I've done 3 run days and I've done 3 rest days. If I was feeling a little like I needed just a little more, maybe I had a niggle or something, I would do Monday run, and then I'd go Tuesday rest, Wednesday rest, Thursday run, Friday run, and then Saturday rest. So you see, I'm just sort of, that 2-day rest early in the week gives you just enough to get that little niggle out and then but not get too tired or your body hasn't just reverted into a rest. So yeah, definitely 2 days the first week and minimum of 3 days rest. And if you're feeling like you need more, go 3 days on the first week and 4 days on the second. What I often find a lot of people do, and you guys may have done this yourself, I see a lot of people on the week before the race, they'll rest the whole week and they might just do like a little run once during the week. Big no-no on that one. If you have been doing that, I encourage you, try something different because your body's getting too rested for that.
So what does Wayne do in tapering?
Okay, so what I do in tapering is for a big ultra race, if I'm doing like anything over a marathon, like 50, 60K, those sort of races, I'll taper for 3 weeks. But for a marathon, normally 2 weeks. And what I do in that taper is I schedule out, get my volume set. So once again, if I'm doing a 3-week taper, I go 75% of my volume, then I cut down to 50%, then 25% in the week leading up. If I'm doing a 2-week taper, it's straight into 50%, 25%. Then once I've worked out my volume, I look at where I can strategize and strategically put my rest days and my run days. Then from there, I work out on those run days, am I gonna do a workout, a shorter, sharper workout? So instead of a full workout, I do half workouts and leaving myself enough time. But in the last week of race week, I used to try and do short workouts and I found it just taxed me too much. But that's me, because I weigh, 78 kilos, I'm 182 centimeters. I'm not small. So if I do a short workout, it takes its toll. So in the last week or race week, I just do easy running myself. And I plan those easy runs out. Then on top of that, I do a lot of stretching, a lot of foam rolling, trying to really open up the muscles, the tendons, fibers, get a lot more blood flowing through them, oxygen, and a lot of stretching, keeping my body stretched out, because when you go into tapering, we call it taper tightness. A lot of you will experience this in your first week of tapering. You start freaking out because you think, oh, why? I never used to be that tight. Why is it so tight? Why is that happening? Your muscles contract when you taper off because you're not under load anymore. So they're contracting. So the idea of stretching a lot is to stop that contraction, stop that taper tightness from coming on, because that taper tightness, I've seen it before with a lot of people. It creates something in their mindset, fear, doubt, all these things start creeping in because they feel like, oh, is this an injury coming, or what is this? They get nervous. So you want to keep all of that and keep a fresh, clear head. So that's what I do on tapering. I'm not saying that's what you should do. What I do encourage you to do, if you want to move to another level, get a coach and get them to give you some specific information for you, or leave a comment in the comments box. Tell me what race you've got coming up, how much you run per week, and I'll give you some good advice on your next tapering just from that. There's a free one for you. Don't want to do anything to aggravate anything, so that's what tapering run's about.